Today, as I drive down this long, rain-soaked road, I realize I'm not in a hurry. The rain taps gently on the windshield, creating a hypnotic rhythm, as if the world itself is whispering for me to slow down. Not just the car, but my mind, my heart. For a long time I was running, not with my feet, but with my thoughts, running from something that had always been there, silent but constant. The weight of a guilt I never truly released. That uncomfortable memory, that choice I made and regretted. That version of myself I tried so hard not to see. I pretended I had moved on, but really, I had just pushed it into a dark corner inside me, a corner where light didn't reach, where even time seemed afraid to enter. Have you ever felt that way, like there's a part of you just don't want to face? Sometimes it came as a stray thought, other times a dream, or just a feeling that drifted in, like fog at noon. And when it happened, I'd turn on some music, switch on the TV, anything to drown it out, because listening meant feeling, and feeling meant admitting it still hurt. Today, with the rain softly echoing through every curve of the road, that feeling has come back to visit. But this time, something is different. I don't feel afraid to face it. In fact, I think it's asking to be heard, not with urgency, not with pain, just a quiet voice, one that's waited too long for attention. Maybe this is where forgiveness begins, not when we forget, but when we stop running and start listening. I don't know exactly when or how I lost myself, but I know I carried the blame. For years, blamed myself for what I said, or didn't say, for who I hurt, or failed to protect. And over time, I slowly drifted away from who I really was. It's strange to think about that now, behind the wheel, because in some way, this road feels symbolic. A return, a journey home, not to a place, but to myself. As I watch the raindrops slide across the glass, I think about everything I kept locked inside, everything I chose not to feel, and everything I wish I had told myself sooner. If I could go back in time, I wouldn't change what happened, but maybe I would have been kinder to myself. I would have said, you did the best you could with what you had. But I never said that, not even once. So today, here in this car, with the rain as my companion, I start by saying it now, not out loud, just in thought, but with honesty. You did the best you could, and maybe that's the beginning. There are moments when silence is louder than any sound, even with the car moving, even with the rain falling outside. Some silences echo too deeply. They arrive when everything around slows down, and the mind, even for just a few seconds, dares to whisper truths we've avoided for far too long. There were days when I thought I was over it, days when the routine kept me distracted just enough. I'd wake up, do what I had to do, talk to people, smile when necessary, but the moment I was alone, it would all come back. Sometimes it was a smell, a piece of a song, a random street corner, tiny triggers that pulled me right back unwillingly to that moment, that memory. That mistake I had buried so deep, even time seemed afraid to touch it. And when it returned, it came with full force. I'd see myself there again, reliving words, redoing actions, building alternate endings in my mind, as if somehow that could change what had already happened. But it never changed, because the past doesn't rewrite itself. Only the meaning we give it can change. Only the weight we choose to carry can be transformed. It took me a long time to understand that, and honestly, I'm still learning. I still catch myself trying to fix the memories. But now, something is different. Instead of running from them, I sit with them. I look straight at what hurts and I ask, why are you still here? And more often than not, I realize the pain just wanted to be acknowledged. Just needed me to say, yes, that happened. Yes, it hurt. And yes, I can move on now. This rainy road helps me think. The steady sound of raindrops calms me, almost like a mantra. And in that space between one thought and another, something new begins to form, a kind of compassion. Not for others, for me. I've always been hard on myself. When I made mistakes, I punished myself. When I felt sad, I hid it. When I failed, I pretended it didn't hurt. But I never, not even once, stopped to ask, what if I'm just doing the best I can with what I have? Today, that question follows me. It echoes in the silence between songs that have already played. It weaves itself into the engine's soft hum. It's there, quietly reminding me that maybe I've been too cruel with myself. And what if all I ever needed was this? To allow myself to be human, to make mistakes, to feel, to learn, to begin again. Maybe forgiveness is exactly that. A silent embrace for who we once were. A deep acceptance that we are not our mistakes. We are who survived them. There's a kind of exhaustion that sleep can't fix. A deeper weariness that settles in the chest. The kind that comes from carrying something for far too long, without ever stopping to ask what it really is. For a long time, I carried that weight. Not in my hands, but on the shoulders of my soul. It was like I had made a mistake. And without realizing it, I sentenced myself to an invisible prison. I became both the prisoner and the guard. For years I thought forgiving myself meant forgetting. As if by forgiving I would be saying, it's okay, it was nothing. But it wasn't nothing. It hurt, it left a mark, it changed me. That's why I resisted. as if giving myself permission to forgive was betraying the pain. But time has a gentle way of showing us what truly matters, and it taught me that forgiveness is not a shortcut, it's not an escape, it's a process, and it begins when we stop running from ourselves. Today, as I drive along this gray, rainy road, I feel something inside me start to soften, as if a part of me, silent for years, finally found the words it needed. And the words, they're not complicated. They're simple, they're soft. They say, I know, I saw, I understand. I glance at the rearview mirror, see the road behind me, wet and shimmering beneath the rain. And I realize, maybe that's what forgiveness does. It doesn't erase the road we've traveled, but it smooths the potholes, eases the bumps, and gently allows the journey to continue. That version of me, the one who failed, the one who fell, still exists, but today, I embrace him. He did the best he could with what he had. He didn't know everything, he stumbled, and even so, he survived. And with that understanding, I keep driving. No rush, no pressure, eyes on the present, and my heart, for the first time in a long while, feeling lighter. It didn't happen in some big event. There was no long conversation, no dramatic turning point. The moment I realized I needed to forgive myself, it was simple, almost ordinary. It was nighttime. One of those nights when the silence in the house feels heavy and everything seems more vivid. I was in the bathroom brushing my teeth. The light was dim and outside it was raining. And for some reason I looked up and met my eyes in the mirror. It happened fast, but something in that moment unraveled me. I couldn't hold my own gaze. I looked tired, my eyes low, like someone carrying the weight of the world. And in that instant, a quiet question rose inside me. What am I doing to myself? There was no answer, just emptiness. And in that silence, I understood I had grown distant from myself out of shame, out of fear, out of disappointment. I had stopped being my own home. From that night on, I began the return. Not in a rush, not with formulas, but with small steps, with pauses, with deep listening. I learned that reconnecting with who we once were sometimes hurts, but it can also heal. I started speaking to the part of me I had avoided, the one who failed, who stayed silent, who hid away. I sat with him, like sitting with an old friend who had drifted away. And I asked, what did you feel back then? What did you need to hear that no one said? And then I listened. Without judgment, without trying to fix anything quickly, I simply listened. And in that space of listening, something changed. As if just acknowledging the pain made it lose some of its weight. As if naming the wound began to slowly stitch it closed. That quiet night, standing in front of the mirror, there was no magic, but there was truth. And truth, even in silence, is liberating. Since then, I've been returning to myself, like someone coming home after a long time away, recognizing each room, each feeling, with patience. And now, on this rainy road, between the hum of the engine and the lullaby of falling rain, I feel like I'm finally near the doorstep. Sometimes, listening to yourself is the bravest thing you can do, because deep down, we know where it hurts. We know what we buried too quickly. We know what still pulses quietly in the background. On this drive, with the headlights lighting up the wet road, I think about how many times I tried to run from what I felt. I put on headphones, dove into distractions, did everything I could to avoid myself. But what belongs to us always finds its way back. Today, I don't run. I listen. I listen to my memories, my silences, my regrets, my unspoken hopes, not to punish myself again, but to understand, because when we listen with honesty, some wounds begin to heal simply by being seen. Each kilometer of this road seems to carry a bit of weight away, as if I'm leaving behind old fragments of pain, scattered between puddles and distorted reflections on the pavement. The rain doesn't stop, and I'm grateful for that. It cradles my thoughts gently, as if saying, without words, take it slow, it's okay now. I realize there's comfort in this steady sound. It doesn't ask anything of me. It doesn't pressure me. It just stays. Maybe that's what we need most sometimes. Quiet company, light presence, wordless acceptance. This road is teaching me that forgiveness isn't a final destination. It's a process, crossing, and the first step is listening to yourself. Honestly, I know that forgiving myself doesn't erase what happened. And honestly, that's not what I'm looking for. I don't want to forget. I want to remember. With gentleness, I want to look back without shrinking on the inside, because the version of me who made those mistakes was also the one who brought me here. If I hadn't stumbled, I might never have stopped, never paused to reflect, never grown. The mistake, as hard as it was an invitation to truly see myself, not as I wished to be, but as I really was. And accepting who I was, is what allows me to grow. The rain continues, steady, as if the sky is whispering. There's no rush. Go at your own pace. And so I do. One thought at a time, one memory at a time, revisiting the parts of me that hurt, but also the ones that endured, the ones that learned, the ones that, even afraid, chose to keep going. Today I understand that forgiveness is more about presence than past. It's about being here now, with all that I've been, without needing to run from any of it. It's saying I was that person, and that's okay. Because today, I'm someone who understands. As the car moves gently forward, I let myself be carried by the endless rain. It doesn't erase what's been, but it softens, it soothes, and in that quiet comfort, I find something I haven't felt in a long time. Peace with my own story. Sometimes I wonder how many beautiful things have I missed just because I was trapped inside myself. How many landscapes passed unnoticed. How many silences I couldn't hear. How many people tried to reach out, but only found walls. Tonight, as the car rolls slowly down the wet road, I feel like my eyes have changed, not in color, but in depth. The glow of the streetlights reflected in puddles. The trees swaying softly in the breeze. The raindrops gliding down the window like dancers. All of it seems to hold a new meaning now. It's no longer just scenery, it's company. It's as if the world has been trying all along to remind me you're here, you're still alive, there's still time. And that phrase echoes in me with a quiet strength, not like a shout, but a whisper, as if the night itself is trying to lull me to sleep. I realize that when we begin to forgive ourselves, we also begin to truly see. We start to notice beauty where there used to be only hurry. We start to feel presence where there was once absence. We begin to exist fully, not just in fragments. Maybe forgiveness gives us this gift, the ability to see the world with new eyes, softer, calmer, more alive. It feels like something inside me has healed tonight, on this quiet, rainy road. Not in a dramatic way, not like in the movies, with tears and loud revelations, but in the softest way possible. Through gentle acceptance, I accepted that I made mistakes. I accepted that it hurt. I accepted that it took me time to understand. And above all, I accepted that even so, I still deserve to move forward. Looking back now is like seeing an old photograph. There's still emotion, yes, but it no longer hurts. The memory still exists, but it doesn't burn anymore. Today it teaches, it shows me who I was, and how far I've come since then. And that brings me a quiet kind of pride. Not pride in perfection, but in the journey. There's a beauty in recognizing your own effort, in looking inward and realizing, I tried, I failed, but I kept going. And sometimes, continuing on, is the bravest thing we can do for ourselves. The rain outside hasn't stopped, and honestly I don't want it to, because it holds this peace that's gently covering me from within. The peace of someone who finally stopped hurting themselves. The peace of someone who realized that growth does hurt, yes, but it also sets you free. I've arrived. I'm not exactly sure where, because it's not a place with a name. It's not on the GPS. There's no sign on the road, but I feel it. With every part of me I've finally arrived. It's not an arrival like any other, not the end of a journey, but the beginning of a new way of being. Being with myself, being in peace, being fully present. For so long my mind was always racing. Even when my body stood still, my thoughts kept running. Guilt, memories, questions, old ghosts. But now, inside this quiet car, with the rain soothing my senses, there's a different kind of silence. Not the silence of emptiness, but the silence of serenity. It feels like something realigned within me, as if my heart, after beating so anxiously for so long, had finally found its own rhythm. There's no rush now, no fear, no sense of owing anything to the past. I close my eyes for a moment. The sound of rain on the car's roof feels like a blanket woven from water and time, as if each drop were whispering, it's okay, stay here a little longer, rest, and I stay without thinking about tomorrow, without going back to what already passed. I stay right here, with myself, and in this here there is room for everything. My story, my wounds, my attempts, and most of all, my choice to continue with lightness. I understood something essential on this journey. Life doesn't ask for perfection, it only asks for presence. And being truly present is the greatest gift we can give ourselves. So yes, I've arrived to me. And if you've been listening this far, I hope that in some way you feel yourself arriving too. Maybe not at the destination you imagined, but at a safe place within you. That place exists, and when you find it, you are never alone again. Good night, may your heart feel light, may your soul breathe deeply, and may the rain keep falling softly like a lullaby for the one who at last has found themselves